Joey Gallo.
Welcome into the NSFW Dynasty podcast. I am your host, Dave Reed, and we're missing one host, but it's all right. We're in the wonderful hands of Joey Gallo over here.
Yeah, baby, we're here. We survived Las Vegas. We got a Pittsburgh Steelers win, never in doubt.
Never in doubt.
And I'm only just, as you'll soon be able to tell, regaining my voice right now. But yeah, it was stadium swim was all that it was chalked up to be.
It looked like the dream. I mean,
Yeah.
a sports book and a pool party at the same time is pretty epic. And
Yeah.
you met up with one of our friends from a fantasy baseball league too, right?
Yeah, met up with a guy from a fantasy baseball league, met some of the Vegas Sports and Information Network guys that were also hanging out at the stadium swim on Sunday for the NFL football. And yeah, overall great time. If I had to give any criticism whatsoever, they played the game audio of like the main game at the time, and then they played music during the commercials. I probably would have just preferred music the whole time.
Yeah,
because I mean, frankly, like you're mostly following games without the audio. Like there's 9 games on, one of them has audio and 8 don't. So like you're mostly like, so you know, like you may as well just have music and follow all the games without the audio. So, but I mean, I get that's, you know, the whole point of being there is for the game. So,
what was the ratio like there of men? Because it's a sports book still, so like that's the.
It wasn't as dude weighted as you would like
as a normal
maybe think. Yeah, like it was probably like 60-40.
Okay, that's not
70-30. Like, man, I'm closer to 60-40. It was also hot, like very, very hot. So you actually ended up having to like go in and out of the pool to just like cool off a little bit. But yeah, overall great time. Would do again. We had a phenomenal spot. It ended up working out really well. So look forward to the next time we can be there. And actually, while we were walking through the Circa hotel to get to the stadium swim, we cut through the actual like indoor, the real like Circa Sportsbook. Also incredible.
Oh,
so
really? Okay.
Really, really impressive. And the next time I go back to Vegas with like the guys only, I feel like we'll be spending more time at the Circa because it's you go in there and you're like, yeah, this is where you want to watch the sports. Yeah,
that's awesome. I got to get there, man. Sounds like an epic time for all the degens out there listening. That's the Mecca right there.
Yeah, sure is.
And you mentioned Steelers won. They prevailed over the Jets, which was great because I have a season-long bet on the Steelers over wins and under Jets wins. So that was a double win for me there. Real good.
I don't know what I was thinking. Like 10 minutes into the game, it was just couldn't understand. It was one of those lines where you just kind of scratch your head. Why is this team that's 2-4 laying points on the road against a team that's 4-2? And Russ looked good. Russ looked really good. So I'm actually excited about my several George Pickens shares. If he's going to be able to throw the deep ball as well as he was giving him a lot of opportunities downfield, just kind of lobbing them up there for him, which is kind of what Pickens needs. He goes up and gets balls like that. So
exactly. He seemed motivated knowing too that he could actually get some balls thrown his way because Fields is not a quarterback. He's a running back. I think that was very clear. I think we mentioned in the pod that the move, even though they were 4-2, you don't generally change quarterbacks then, but you could tell it's because the whole offense gets elevated with having a true quarterback and Russ behind the helm there. So it seemed it was a bold move, and it seemed like 1 weekend it worked out.
Yeah, 100%. And it'll be interesting to see. It's a weird scheduling quirk where they get the Jets at home in primetime last week, and now they get the Giants at home in primetime this week. So
it's probably going to be another bloodbath.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure
that overbet's looking great right now.
Russ will continue to look very good.
Yes, he will.
Yeah.
Not going to spend too much time on the Giants this week.
No.
It was a real bad game, but we're not paying attention. But we're going to jump into the rest of it. So again, a lot of injuries, both people getting hurt, but a few people coming back. So opening up opportunities. Honestly, this, especially in Dynasty, it's in a game of attrition that we're getting through. I'm actually a team that started selling last week, if you recall on the last pod, and a lot of things happened this week that gave me assets that I can flip. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Um, so I'm going to jump in first with the quarterbacks here. Jaden Daniels, who's the rookie phenom, he actually left early with a rib injury, and Marcus Mariota came in and actually cooked in about 3.5 quarters of play. Maybe it's product of the system, we'll see, but it looks like Jaden Daniels is very doubtful for, I believe they got flexed to Sunday Night Football. So we'll see what happens there. Aiden O'Connell, hopefully you weren't starting him anyway, but he fractured his finger, going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. And Gardner Minshew came back in and was bad, had 3 interceptions, I believe. Deshaun Watson experiment is likely over. The payroll's not, but he is done for the year and potentially longer with a torn Achilles. Dorian Thompson Robinson came in or injured his finger. He kind of stinks as well, but that opened the door for Jameis Winston time, baby, finally. And he's actually getting the start this week. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of fantasy goodness coming from that. Tyler Huntley, who you hopefully we're not starting, and hopefully the Dolphins didn't have to start again, but he got hurt his week to week, but that's okay because Tua is likely back this week, so that a lot of implications there. Will Levis missed, still recovering from an AC joint injury, and also looking like he might miss this week. So Mason Rudolph continues to get some starts, and Andy Dalton actually got in a car accident this week, so that is forcing Bryce Young back into the starting role. So a lot of opportunities for quarterbacks that you maybe were not expecting to be able to start this year, and it's also going to have an impact on a lot of the weapons. So, Joe, what are some of the big takeaways from here?
Yeah, it's a shame that it's like a week or two after Amari Cooper got traded, that Jameis took over because I was always kind of hoping you'd get to see some extended Winston time with Cooper. Just feel like he would have been a lot of targets, a lot of yardage, and we'll see what the offense looks like. I'm happy that it's he'll get the opportunity, and for fantasy and for real life, I actually think it elevates the potential for the offense quite a bit. But at the same time, they don't really have a ton of weapons. Talking
Cedric
about like
Tillman.
Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman and David Njoku.
I think
So
Njoku is like a top tight end.
yeah,
He can have
yeah,
so many targets, but
yeah, 100% agree with
Tillman
that.
is interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's probably their best receiver right now.
Yeah, and he got double-digit targets. Judy got basically no bump because he stinks.
Yeah,
So Tillman is someone who, in some dynasty leagues, actually might have been cut in on and waiver wires. If you have taxi squads, he's likely been kept there. So
yeah,
surprise asset might have been popping up. That's one again that I was talking about this week that just popped up on my roster that I might be able to. Who knows? It turns into something.
yeah.
Um,
I'll be interested to see how Bryce Young looks. Dalton, after looking really, really good the first week, has been
Bad.
super, super underwhelming. Yeah, like just awful. So I feel like they were, car accident or not, they were kind of probably leaning towards flipping back to Bryce Young at
Are
some
you
point
are
soon.
you
Anyway,
saying ownership crashed the car into?
yeah, I mean
A good
it's really
excuse.
possible.
They couldn't actually put Bryce Young back. They needed some other reason to get him in.
Yeah. But I mean, I think they'll probably continue to stink, for being totally honest.
I agree.
And
Deontay, we're not. It's not on the list, but Deontay Johnson's actually missed practice today. I just got an update on too. So Bryce Young's not going to have even all his weapons too. So it's not going to be pretty.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, obviously, Jaden Daniels hurts for me, um, but I'm holding out hope that this is not an extended absence. Obviously, they are in first place in the division, and they're a good team. They have high aspirations, so I imagine they're looking to get him back sooner than later. It's unfortunate that I don't know if it affects his mobility or propensity to run. It probably takes away a little bit of his upside from a rushing and touchdown scoring perspective, at least in the short term. But um, yeah, I mean, honestly, like thinking about a lot of these, it's like the Raiders, the Browns, the
The
Titans,
Titans.
and the Panthers are like four of the six teams we're talking about here. And I honestly, I think like they're terrible teams, regardless of who's playing quarterback for them. I have no real optimism or hope for any of them. So maybe I don't even know. I've been wrong with every single Tennessee Titans take that I've had this entire season, so I'm not even going to begin to hypothesize on that one.
Rudolph the Ridley with no Hopkins there. Who knows? But I wouldn't be overly. I wouldn't be counting on it. And Jaden Daniels, like it doesn't. I think the X-rays came back negative, so it shouldn't
Yeah,
be long term. But this was the one thing you were concerned about with Daniels because he takes so many hits. He's not really he's shown the ability at times to try to avoid contact, but he's usually not that great at it. So hopefully this is not a major injury, and he kind of gives him a wake up call that like in the NFL you probably should slide a couple more times. But
yeah,
biggest news is Tua coming back because my God, it's been a dumpster fire there, and there's so many like valuable assets there between Tyreek, Waddle, even Achan gets like a boost because there won't be so many people in the box now. So like him coming back is huge. He's not wearing a Guardian cap. I'm not a doctor, but I'm not sure what protection the Guardian cap actually provides. It's just I don't know why they talk about it if it doesn't help you with concussions, and that's what he's dealing with. But he's not riding with it, so hopefully he can stay healthy.
yeah. Uh, I mean, I I hope that it works out for him long term. All I can say is that it seems like a very nearsighted decision to me. But look, he's worked his whole life to play. He wants to play, and you know, all we can do is you know react and respond with our wagering and fantasy decisions that correspond with his decision. And as we'll see later in the gambling or the sports betting segment of this pod, I'll be going big on Tyreek Hill this week. I think that there's a little bit of depressed value there, and I think there's going to be an opportunity to take a little bit of advantage of some slight pricing upside with Tyreek's receiving yards this week with Tua back against a
Yeah, the cards.
terrible Cardinals team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're gonna light him up.
yeah,
I have HN everywhere, and I'm like really excited for one of those
yeah. I looked at him a
100
couple
yards in
places to
quarter.
like try to pick him up,
Yeah,
but I just feel like yeah, it's harder for me with Achan because he's injury prone and Tua is injury prone, so it's kind of just like you need both of them to stay healthy. And but I I think that you could probably acquire him. Like the window's closing. It's a couple days that you've got left where you could still maybe acquire him in a redraft for like a slight discount if you really want to roll the dice on Miami's offense. Probably be pretty good the rest of the year.
yeah, and especially this week, I'm expecting a big week. I need him. But moving over, we had a bit of a bloodbath, some major injuries, and at wide receiver, and honestly, some uh, wide receivers who honestly just tanked your team. Starting off with the duo in San Francisco. First, the less one Debo Samuel. You found out that he's questionable with illness. Usually, when players end up playing, you're like, okay, they'll be fine, play through it. Did not happen with Debo. Put up a goose. He actually ended up. I think he might have gone to the hospital. He had like fluid in his lungs or something. So he actually ended up exiting the game. Hopefully things will be okay and he can go this week. And the Niners will need it because on the other side, Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL and his MCL, and he's done for this year and likely be getting him next year. And that stinks. He signed that. Thankfully for him, he signed that big contract. That's why you hold out is so you get the money before you get hurt. But he only had one good game. That was probably the one game he was on your bench because he put up duds for like four straight. So tough for the fantasy owners. DK Metcalf sprained his MCL. He's down for this week, but it seems like he avoided a major injury. Thankfully, Jalen Polk was concussed, and honestly, he's just been bad. I'm just going to admit it. He's just been very bad lately. So he had good metrics before Drake May started, and now Drake May starting, and Polk forgot how to catch a ball, but it doesn't really matter. Juju Smith-Schuster, who had that big blow-up game 2 weeks ago, was on bye, came back, everyone got hyped, immediately had a hamstring injury, put up a goose, and he's likely missing multiple weeks. Mike Evans for the Tampa Bay Bucks had a hamstring issue, was dealing with a hamstring, still was out there playing. And then he absolutely destroyed his hamstring. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks. They do have a week 11 bye, so he might avoid the IR as they get that extra week because of the bye there. But he's going to be out for an extended period of time as well, which is brutally awful because Chris Godwin had a horrible ankle injury, was bent the wrong way. I forgot what is it, like dislocation, and
Yeah.
they're like, I forget what the term is, but it's not good. He's done for the year. I think it's a contract year for him, but it's something we've seen this happen to players many times, and we always say their career is over. It's never really anyone's career over, but it's a nasty looking injury. I don't like watching replays of it, and he's there after the year. So the Bucs offense is basically decimated now. Zay Flowers has an ankle sprain. He's been missing practice. Keep an eye on it, but he's been actually looking very good for the Ravens and that offense as a whole. And then for the Rams, some positive news. Games going on right now. Both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua have returned after missing multiple weeks, and they've actually Puka's been putting up quite a stat line, and actually Cooper Kupp's already scored a touchdown as well. So fantasy managers were happy to get them back. But Joe, which ones do you want to hit on here? Obviously, there's some big news here.
Um. Yeah, with Godwin, that's crappy for him and the team. He
He was cooking all year too. He was
he
looking
was,
great.
and there's been like a little bit of like a recent evidence of people who kind of like experience these bad you know like compound fractures or dislocations of the ankle. Like Tony Pollard had a similar one with Dallas 2 years ago. Last year, he wasn't really great. And it seems like this year, he's just kind of like getting a little bit of his explosiveness back. So I
Godwin
don't
had an
know.
ACL injury only like 3-4 years ago too, and it took a
Yeah.
while for him
Like,
to
I don't
recover.
know that, like, if I was a team that was looking to sign him, I would be less worried about a bone break, like a structural like injury like that versus ligaments, but it's
Mhm.
obviously still not great. Um, yeah, and I mean, it's interesting the messaging around Cup and Nakua was kind of like all week was kind of like, oh, Puka might be able to play, limited, and we'll see if he's going to be back, and he's been the primary target the
Yeah,
entire game. So, and I don't know if you plan to mention this later or not, but there's been some trade rumors around Cup swirling around. I don't know if he's
yeah.
getting
Tampa Bay
less
look.
less action in the offense because they're potentially shopping him, and I don't know. I mean, Puka was the number one receiver before this season anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a rough week. Um, it'll be interesting to see what happens in San Francisco too with they have those two. Either are they both rookies? Jacob Cowing and obviously Ricky Pearsall is a rookie, but
Yep.
is Cowing a rookie too? I think he is.
Yeah, I believe he is a rookie.
Yeah, so that's
He was like
two rookies there plus
a
Juwan Jennings. Obviously, Metcalf will be back. I mean, Samuel will be back, but it'll be interesting to see
yeah.
what that.
Juwan Jennings is definitely going to get a big bump, and he's looked great in the opportunities. It's even after his big blow up game, it's just because everyone got back healthy. But once he gets the target share, I think he's going to be real useful.
Yeah, for sure.
But the 49ers for a team that like they're basically Super Bowl or bust this year, and they just cannot get healthy. Like all their key players keep getting hurt. It's brutal. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a tough one. And in Tampa Bay, like the other person hurts is like Baker. Baker's been honestly one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy this year, but that's been with his two targets, Evans and Godwin, that he's been dominating with, and they're not there anymore. And you saw Big Bomb Cade Otton got a ton of looks. He's not going down deep. He's going to probably get like average 10 yards per catch, but he's going to get a lot of targets.
yeah,
Rashad White, who looked like he was losing a lot of the role, now he's very necessary. He's going to be more of like a slot receiver almost out of the backfield. So you saw that again in this game, him getting a lot of targets. That's where he feasted last year. He's not a great rusher. And now the rookie McMillan, I believe is his name, out of
yeah. McMillan.
Washington. He's by default one of the top two wide receivers now on the team, as well as Sterling Shepard, who's a blast from the pass from Giants. So you can't have Shepard really be your number one and succeed. So they seem like a team that might be motivated to make a move, maybe for Cooper Cup. And obviously, Godwin was playing on the slot and dominating. Cooper Cup plays that exact same role. It seems like a pretty natural fit. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But moving down to running back storm with some good news. Nick Chubb got back on the field and scored a touchdown, which was great to see. Overall, not excited about that offense in general, but like you just cheer for Nick Chubb and the fact that yet
Yeah,
again this guy just always finds a way back, and it's great to see him back on the field and succeeding. Um, Travis Etienne missed last week, looking like he might miss this week. And honestly, the offense actually looks better with Bigsby as things are rolling. David Montgomery left the game with a knee injury. It looked like it could have been bad. He actually got back in the game. Uh, and he might have a lessened workload this week as he like makes sure he's still healthy and Gibbs can carry the load. Something to keep an eye on. And CMC looks like he's going to be out through their week 9 bye, but there's a chance he comes back after that bye, which is in line with that November timeline that people have been talking about. So something to keep an eye on. And just to throw in another player from tight end, TJ Hawkinson, he's not playing tonight, but it looks like there's a good chance he plays next week as he had some limited practices this week. So, but what any of these you want to touch upon, Joe?
yeah. Just the overall disappointment with ETN. Have him in one league, and I don't know that I'm even going to start him this week anyway. Even if he is active, it's like he's coming back from a soft tissue injury, and Bigsby's been good, and Dearness Johnson has even been pretty good. It's just like he's got to show me that he still has the job and can get it done before I'm like in a rush to get him back out there right now. I feel like he was underwhelming even before he was hurt. So he's a big disappointment. Frankly, it's one of the bigger busts, I would say, of the whole year at like a second round draft capital. So unfortunate there.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, he
and
was
then
inefficient last year too, so it's actually becoming a pretty large sample size. That if he doesn't
yeah,
get touchdowns, he's not that valuable.
yeah, but he just looked better last year. A lot more explosive plays. Like although like the inefficiency was there, he kind of made up for it with the chunk plays and like the explosives and whatnot. But obviously, there's none of that this year. So
Yeah,
um, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when Hawkinson comes back in that Minnesota offense too, because um, like I don't know, I they throw to Justin Jefferson a lot because he's always open. That's just like the nature of having Justin Jefferson on your team.
I was just watching. He also made a crazy bobble catch on the side. This guy is actually insane. I don't know how
Yeah,
he's like he could have 90% of his body 10 yards out of bounds, and yet his toes still tap in. It's crazy.
yeah. And as someone who's like, I'm like consistently frustrated by the lack of targets that Jordan Addison gets. I feel like when they target him, he's always open downfield as well. He's always making big plays. Will just be interesting to see how involved Hawkinson is quickly. Obviously, he doesn't have like an existing rapport with Sam Darnold, so will
He
be
does
interesting.
feast more in the shorter area. Like
Yeah,
obviously JJ's been handling that with some slants and curls in there, but I think that'll end up being a lot of his errors, and that's kind of where he feeds it. He gets the reception, not a ton of yards, but it's okay.
yeah,
Um, I mean, I think the offense will be good, and honestly, keeping with the Vikings because they're obviously on, and I think it's a natural segue. Because the other thing that could be happening, there's rumors of a Stafford Darnold swap, basically between these two teams that have been getting floated out there. Because the Rams look like they might be selling, and the Vikings look like a Super Bowl contender, but a lot of people don't believe that Darnold can really get you to a Super Bowl, but Stafford has actually proven that already. So it makes kind of sense. And then like the Rams could take a deeper look if they want to extend Darnold at the end of the season. So if that trade were to happen, Joe, how would you be feeling about all these different pieces?
um, pretty neutral, I would say. Frankly, I think that Sam Darnold could probably step into Sean McVay's offense and target the hell out of Nakua and Cup the same way that
I think
Matt
it's the same
Stafford.
offense, isn't it? Isn't
It's similar for
I think
sure,
that
right?
Donald comes from the McVay tree, so
Yeah,
it's a similar offense.
yeah. So I don't I don't think it makes a huge difference. I think it makes a huge difference for actual football,
Yeah.
and in terms of like improving Minnesota's chances of winning a Super Bowl. But for fantasy, uh, I don't know that I would be too devastated one way or another. I think it's, you know, Jefferson, even with Darnold right now, it's like,
Dominates
60% of the way through the game, and he's got,
115
eight
yards and eight
eight
catches.
catches on 9 targets for 115. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you can a- ask for much more or much better, even with even with Stafford. So
Yeah, I don't think the weapons get a huge bump. Honestly, I think if anyone, maybe Addison gets like a little bump since he doesn't really get targeted too much by Darnold.
it'd be nice.
But I think Stafford would be the biggest winner because I think his offense
Yeah.
would just level up. Obviously, it's a better O line, better defense. And he's an older player, so I think. And throwing to Justin Jefferson is just going to add like an extra 100 yards per game to your passing yards. So that's where I think the biggest bump comes from.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from hypothetical trades to actual trades that went down in the NFL, DeAndre Hopkins got traded to the Chiefs. I believe it was yesterday morning for a fifth that can become a fourth. I believe what would have to happen is the Chiefs just have to get to the Super Bowl, and I think DeAndre Hopkins has to play 61% of snaps going forward. Um, but pretty big play. Obviously, we've been talking about the Chiefs and their offense, and well, I'll throw some Mahomes stats in later. But there haven't been a lot of weapons there. Obviously, I mentioned Juju earlier. He's hurt, going to be missed games. We know Rasheed Rice is out for the year. Xavier Worthy is not a target earner. Again, I think he had like 3 catches for like 19 yards. He's just not it. So they went out and got a true receiver, even though he's on the opposite other side of the prime that you'd want him to be on. But what do you think about this trade?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's obviously still got it. He definitely showed flashes in Tennessee this year, even with bad
Mm-hmm.
quarterback play and on a bad team. So I think it's a good move for the Chiefs. The team takes a little bit of the pressure off Mahomes to do so much, um, with not not as much of a supporting cast. Although, frankly, uh, he's seemingly able to kind of get the job done with the pieces that he has. I do think as the season goes on, they'll be happy that they have experience, more reliability at the wide receiver position. So, and for fantasy, I mean, he's on the tail end of his career, and yeah, I mean, I personally wasn't looking to like run out and grab him, and that is obviously somewhat of a risk because it's probably the best offense with the best quarterback in football. So he could honestly dominate the rest of the way. But I don't know. He's in the later end of his career. There's a lot of established weapons there. Kelsey's there. Kareem Hunt has been looking pretty nice, and they're also like pretty committed to the run. They've been pretty committed to the run the
Mm-hmm.
last like 2 seasons now, and they play good defense. They don't need to do too much on offense. So I just wasn't like, for me, it wasn't like I need to rush out and get this guy in either redraft or dynasty. And just kind of let it. Well, if he hits, I'll let him hit on other people's teams. But yeah, that wasn't where I wanted to throw all my chips down in front of. Um, could end up looking stupid for sure, but that's just
Yeah.
kind of and it's probably like 50-50 to be honest. But that was just the decision that I made, was pass on, because like the price right after news like that breaks, it's just like, you're paying way more than you should be. And frankly, there was like a trade that you offered me a couple weeks back where I could have gotten him and a couple other guys for Roma Dunze.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that trade would not have happened if Hopkins were on the Chiefs at that time. But
Yep.
that's the kind of thing where, like that was the value that was assigned to him just a short while ago. Um, and I wasn't ready to completely shift that without seeing a snap of him on Kansas City, seeing how
Mm-hmm.
involved he was. So just my take. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I like it for DeAndre. I think he'll be a low end wide receiver too for the most part. He it seems like he's got a safe floor. Like I'm not expecting too many massive blowout weeks. Obviously, that there's always the chance he has like multiple touchdowns in that offense. But to your point, especially when they're in the red zone and 10 zone, they get like trickery, and it's kind of hard to like worry about count on like the number one receiver getting it. But there's a clear need there, and there's definitely targets to be had. Um, and he's great at beating zone. He's very good at in the short area. That's kind of where he feasts, and that's where Mahomes kind of has been throwing. And even with Rashid Rice, like that's where he was targeting. Rashid Rice was in the 10 to 15 yards and on slants. Rice just was able to get a lot of yak on those. So I think Hopkins has opened there a lot. And I think he's pretty much a lock for like 5 to 6 catches a game for anywhere from like 50 to 70 yards generally. See if he gets a touchdown. So I think he'll be very useful. Um, there's always a chance for blow up games. I don't think he uh, getting down the field like the shots don't happen as much. He still is a good jump baller and can win those 50-50 battles, but he doesn't get the separation on those deeper routes like he used to. Like to your point, he's older, but on the shorter and zone beating, he definitely still gets open and he has it there, and he's got great hands. So I think it's a great move for the Chiefs overall. And to your point, like he's a vet, he knows, and he'll catch up with Mahomes quickly.
Yeah.
He'll understand coverages and how to get open, and I think Mahomes will love that.
Yep.
So I think it's good. And like to your point, like I did just trade him. I had him. I'm rebuilding now. I sold him for a second, which I think is probably like pretty fair value right now. I saw him go for a second in another dynasty league I was in as well.
Yeah.
So seemed.
I think it's fair value. I think it was good for you because it happened to be a second from a team that's not currently in playoff position. So like that second
It's not their second; it's a different person's second. So it is someone in
oh
the playoff position. So it's
okay.
likely, as of right now, a back half second.
Okay. I
If
was
it was
gonna
an
say
earlier second, I would have been really excited. I was trying to get
yeah.
an
Yeah.
early second, but
Yeah.
didn't get one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
they
that's
didn't
fair
have
value.
their own. They didn't have their own second. I was going to push for that, but
Yeah, I thought it was their second, which I mean, look, it's a good move regardless, but
yeah,
obviously a big difference between an early second and a late second in a dynasty rookie
for
draft.
sure. Yeah, but it'll be interesting how it plays out. But looking back on a trade that happened last week, Devontae Adams on the Jets. Jets still look like the Jets. We kind of alluded to it, but I just want to reiterate that team still kind of stinks. They are 2-5. Mind you, so are the Giants, and I think these two teams have two very different perceptions of where they stand in the NFL right now. But yeah, Jets are booty cheeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I know the perception is Adams and Rodgers will figure it out, but I would I would like to see it.
Yeah,
So I'm certainly not bullish on Adams the rest of the season, but we'll see what happens.
no, but someone who is dominating and age does not seem to be a factor is Derrick Henry. He honestly might break the NFL rushing record this year, and I really want to bring this up as he's an older running back, and this is we're talking about dynasty here, and this is someone that for every year everyone thinks you got to get off of, and this guy might be the best running back in the game still right now. But also want to call out that before the season started, Ryan's bet for the season was over on Derrick Henry's rushing yards of 950 and a half. He's already at 873. He's going to beat it this week. Like man, I wish I put literally 100 grand on this. Like it is the easiest bet of all time. But what are your thoughts on how Derrick Henry's performing so far?
Yeah, he looks awesome, and it's just the perfect offense, the perfect team situation for him. They're very often playing with the lead. And I know you want to talk about Lamar too. I feel
Yeah,
like it's part of the conversation, which is
yeah,
like
you're right.
when he's
Feel free
when
to
he's
lump it in. Go for it.
yeah, like when he's throwing the ball as well as he is, he's throwing the ball pretty well. He's running, he like drops some weight, he looks like as shifty as he's ever looked before. Like and when Henry's the other option, like it's just it they're almost like unstoppable.
Yeah,
And I just feel like
I mean, every week Henry has like a 60-plus yard run
yeah,
every single week.
because it's just like it's so incredibly difficult to stop him without like selling out to stop him. And if you sell out to stop him, then you're still going to lose by 50 because Lamar is going to torch you either with his legs or throwing the ball. So
And
it's just
the other thing too is obviously Lamar's cooking, and he's dominating so much, the Ravens are then also in a lead a lot, and then when they're in the lead, then they start leading on Henry. It's like all working together. They're both like it's
Yeah,
honestly is the perfect fit. It's what we kind of hope for, but I want to call it up because there are players that we in Dynasty we care too much about age, like a little bit too much, and we overlook veterans and we devalue them completely. And who knows? Maybe Hopkins has the same thing. He gets energized by getting to play on like meaningful games again. Henry on running back landscape should have been dead 3 years ago, and he is right now dominating. And any team wishes they had him on his team. So, just a word of caution to don't overinflate players when they get on over the age of I don't know 25. Like they can still provide value. Obviously, Derrick Henry is an anomaly. I'm not trying to say anyone's going to be like 31, 32, putting up over 2,000 yards rushing, but just absolutely great. And Lamar, my God, is like what was it like 4 or 5 years ago? He was like the QB1, and he might be back now. Like he's
yeah,
putting up multiple 40-point weeks in our league, and it is out of control. He had what 5 touchdown passes. He got Mark Andrews. Maybe he's coming back a little bit. He got two, I think. Zay Flowers looks great, and honestly, someone whom I'm sneakily high on, and I actually wanted to pick him up in redraft last week, and I didn't. I was annoyed, and then I made sure I got him this week. Is Bateman? I'm like sneakily high on
yeah,
Bateman. He's involved in the offense. I don't think enough people are talking about it, and he's making good plays. I think you own him, Joe. How do you feel about him?
yeah. I'm happy about what I see. And the one other thing I wanted to say just quickly about the Ravens offense was just they did designate Keaton Mitchell to return from IR. Um, and he looked pretty good last year when he
He's
had
fast. He's
opportunities.
very fast.
Yeah, and I just like I don't know what that's going to mean for their running back room, right? Like Justice Hill's on the field a lot. Um, I feel like at a certain point this season they may back off Henry's volume a little bit and try to just like preserve him for the playoffs and like the late season run. Um, so it's just like maybe something to keep an eye on as like some of their other running backs get healthy and
Yeah,
if
but
they
isn't
have the
Mitchell like the size of one Henry leg? I'm pretty sure he's
yeah,
small.
Mitchell's very small.
I feel like he's a tiny
Yeah,
dude. Um,
just a
just
I
but as it
yeah
gets cold, that's when Henry gets better. He gets more work.
yeah
That's when he starts averaging like 30 touches a game.
yeah. It's ridiculous.
The guy's out of control. But talking about good quarterback play to bad quarterback play, two guys that are valued very highly in Dynasty and honestly in redraft drafted extremely high. I think they were both like top 4 quarterbacks drafted. Have not been performing to expectations. CJ Stroud put up a major stinker, and honestly, it seems like without Nico, his output has just kind of dropped, and he's not a rushing quarterback. So we always knew that if he's not throwing for a lot of the yards and touchdowns, owners wouldn't be getting the output that they wanted. But you're seeing that come down a lot more. And one thing with CJ Stroud too is that, and you saw this last year, he dominates bad matchups against bad defenses, and he stinks against or I shouldn't always say stink, but he doesn't perform as well against really good defenses. So it's a big feast or famine thing for CJ Stroud, and he's at a much slower pace this year than he was last year. So that's someone who's down, and then the other one is Patrick Mahomes, which going to further. I'll play a couple fun games for you, Joe. But how are you feeling about these two highly sought after quarterbacks in Dynasty, especially super flex leagues, and how they perform so far?
Yeah. So, I mean, my thing is like they're they're they both play for good teams. Like that's like the one commonality is that the Chiefs are the obvious odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. The Texans are 5-2. I think they were like 12 or 14-1 the last time I checked to win the Super Bowl. The same odds as Minnesota and Buffalo, and better odds than Green Bay. So like they're good teams, and they're both getting like very good production from the running back position. They both have like pretty solid defenses. They're winning, right? Like they're 5-2. So for from a fantasy standpoint, I don't necessarily know that either of them are really deserve being valued as like a top fantasy quarterback because they don't produce for fantasy the way that some of the other top quarterbacks do. And for Stroud, obviously, Collins being out is huge
Yeah,
because he's clearly the number one target in the offense, and it makes a huge difference. For Mahomes, we'll see if I mean, like he lost like he lost Rasheed Rice a couple weeks ago, but just overall, he doesn't have a ton of huge weapons, big name weapons in his offense aside from I guess Kelsey and you know Juju Smith Schuster as a name, but he's in the back end of his career, and so I say all that to say, um, we'll see what happens when Collins comes back, and we'll see what happens with the Chiefs with DeAndre Hopkins, but you know, I don't know that either of these guys are. They're definitely not every week starts. Not if you want to win. I feel like you can get more upside throwing in Trevor Lawrence in a matchup where
You
they're
can.
going to give up 40 points because he's going to throw the ball 35 times. So,
I mean, on the season so far, Trevor Lawrence is averaging 17.2 fantasy points per game to Patrick Mahomes 16.4.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I got another fun question for you. Who has more interceptions, Patrick Mahomes or Will Levis?
Mahomes.
Mahomes, yes. Levis has, just double checking my facts on here. He has, I believe it's 7 interceptions to Mahomes, 8. So uh, Mahomes is obviously they got a strong defense. They have a good run game that they're committed to, but he actually has not played that great from like in general. But he gets it done. Like he makes the plays when they have to happen.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
this isn't even just a fact that they are just choosing to run the ball. Like he's made a lot of bad negative plays as well in there. So see, and then one thing with CJ Stroud too, and it's kind of another point I wanted to touch upon too. Is like obviously Nico has been out. That was like a big downfield threat that got obviously get chunk points when you hit on those plays. You were hoping Tank Dell would step into that, and Tank Dell has not looked good this year. In my opinion, like he before Nico went out, he was putting up duds in Goose, and then he's out. He had like one fine game, but he's dropping a lot of balls. He's not having the big downfield plays that you saw so often last year. So, what's the temperature check on you for Tank Dell?
it's a little disappointing. Um, I offered him for Rashad White in one of our redraft leagues. Um, so if that gives you any indication of my current feelings about him, that trade is still sitting out there. I'm kind of hoping it gets accepted, frankly, because I just have more faith in Rashad White to put up fantasy points the rest of the season. I would have liked to see. I mean, Dell scored the first game that Collins was out, but I really wanted to see him kind of like, you know, pick up like big with the production, and it just really like hasn't been there. So disappointing.
Agreed. And another player that we keep wanting to will into fantasy existence, and now with DK Metcalf going to miss at least a game, is JSN. He. I keep wanting him to be better than he is, and it's like getting very frustrating. I
Yeah,
know you want
I'm
him,
I'm
or like trying to acquire him. How do you feel?
I'm less concerned about JSN. Um, I think he is more of a, you know, to quote like something that you say frequently, like a target earner.
Hmm.
And I think that with him, it's just like a situation where um, DK is just like a monster and is
Yeah.
more of a target earner and is just like the obvious go to target in that offense. Um, when Metcalf's not out there, JSN typically performs. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it's the first year for them in a new offense. They run the ball quite a bit. So I'm not. I think JSN has a long and productive career ahead of him, whereas Dell has like a smaller frame and figure. He's more of a speed guy, like a
Yeah.
profiles more of like a home run hitter type of a guy. So I'm like a little long from a long term standpoint, a little more worried about his long term value than JSN's.
Yeah, I'd rather. I agree with that statement. I'd rather have JSN. I feel safer with him. I think he'll have a longer career. And we'll see. They're playing the Bills this week, and if there's no DK, you can imagine that they're going to have to put up points. So hopefully, we see a bunch of targets heading Jay's head's way. But
Yep.
one final one, we'll get your thoughts on. One of them, these players I know you own, but Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. What is going on with these two? Kyler looked terrible. If like you didn't
Yeah.
look at his rushing, where if he doesn't break off like one massive rush or a touchdown here or there, like his fantasy days stink, but his passing has been terrible. And Marvin Harrison Jr. You almost have to like bench until something turns around here.
Yeah. It's been, he's, like, it's almost like this is just like the, the pattern with Kyler throughout his whole career, where he goes through like periods where he's hot and he throws the ball well and he throws for a lot of touchdowns, and others where you just like, you know, can't believe he makes the throws that he makes, and he's mostly terrible. I think Marvin Harrison's probably more frustrated than anything.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a Marvin Harrison problem. I think it's more of a Kyler Murray problem. Because every week there's clips of him like
wide open
double moving
downfield.
guys and getting wide open. Yeah, and the
Yeah.
ball's just not fucking going to him. So I wouldn't be as worried about Marvin Harrison.
I
Uh,
just don't get if you're Keller, like, why are you not just throwing it to him? Like, they got this guy from like this is
I
what
don't know.
every quarterback wants. What are you doing?
I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I agree. I'm not adjusting. I mean, near term, I'm probably, as I mentioned, benching Marvin Harrison until I see things turn around if you can afford to bench him. But like from a dynasty perspective, I'm not like adjusting his value anywhere yet. But Kyler, a lot of people, I think it was the trendiest, like my guy top. Like I think Matthew Berry is like his ride or die. I've read every sleeper people that done like Kyler was probably the trendiest pick for someone who's going to leap into like top five status, and it doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
Well, but those are the happening, the news and notes from around the league, as I like to steal from other pods and all. But wanted to catch everybody up on what was going on and some trends that we're seeing, and take it for what it will. But Joe, why don't you hop into the next segment here?
Yeah, so we're gonna jump into our uh, formerly known as the non-guaranteed lock of the week, the Joey Bottles prop parlay and other potentially profitable pick kitchen. Although recently, or for the near term, we're gonna go with a second rebranding and call it the DTMR parlay kitchen, because Dave's parlays have been pretty damn good. The last couple weeks, we had a winner.
I'm the
We
sous
had
chef,
a
man.
we had a near winner last week, depending on what
The
number you got.
odds. Yeah.
I know, and honestly, we all had it at the pool, and
Mm-hmm.
um, Algier just didn't get carries in
Yeah.
the fourth quarter because of the game script.
I know it's
Um,
frustrating, but if you
yeah,
did take the pieces individually as well, which I did do, it still was a profitable day. But
yeah,
yeah,
yep.
stuff.
But yeah, just a reminder, guys, to head to our page at signupexpert.com/NSFW. Obviously, we mention that every week, but it really is a great place to go. See a list of all the sports books that are available for you, see what unique offerings they have, and, you know, look to see if there's any that you want to take advantage of, while also expanding your number of line shopping resources. When we were in Vegas this weekend, it's actually pretty alarming how bad the mobile sports betting situation is there relative to everywhere else. Um, you have to sign up in person to use any of the mobile apps, and it's really only like MGM and Caesars that are available. Like most of the properties are either MGM properties or Caesars properties, so it's like those two apps. There's not really like a DraftKings or a FanDuel options there. So I say all this to say that I wasn't able to do my normal 6, 7 app line shopping, and it was brutal. It was tough. Like I'm just used to being able to look around and know that I'm getting the best of the number. So head to signupexpert.com/NSFW. Take advantage of the fact that we live in an area where there are a ton of different sports books available, and you can shop and get the best line. And also, if it's the first time you're signing up, you get a new bonus too. So, but without further ado, we will spend a minute to just acknowledge Dave Had a 4-leg SGP, or sorry, a 3-leg SGP last week. Hit the first two legs and then only missed on Tyler Algier's over 38.5 rushing yards. He had 35 rushing yards or 36 rushing yards like
Mhm.
midway through the third or towards the end of the
So
third
much
quarter.
time. Just do one
And
more rush, man. Just give
it was
him one
frustrating. Like at the
time.
end of the game, they were giving rushes to like their third string guy.
Yeah, just give him the ball.
So not a winner,
Mhm.
but as close to a winner as you're going to get. Great picks there. Um, why don't I? You know what? I'm gonna let you go second this week
Oh, okay.
because
I got two parlays.
your
Let's
picks
see
have
what
been hot.
happens.
So this week I mentioned it earlier. I am going with Tyreek Hill. We're going back to the ladder. The ladder served us well. Tyreek Hill over 100 yards receiving, plus 150, plus 160, depending on where you're looking. FanDuel currently has plus 150 right now. And then I'm going to put probably a third of a unit or half a unit each on over 125 yards plus 375 and over 150 yards plus 750. I think those are definitely worth a sprinkle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the uh, the Arizona defense is not good. Miami's at home. That's like it's decent travel for them. Um, I think that Miami's going to be like the offense is going to be rejuvenated. They're all excited to get to it back. There's interviews with Tyreek where he's like, "Yeah, get me back in your lineup."
Yeah, band's back together.
Yeah,
He's pumped.
yeah, yeah. So I think there's and like bet this early because come Saturday, come Sunday, people are going to be getting in on this, and you're not going to get the same numbers that I'm giving out right now. So if you want it, I'd recommend getting some of it in. Um, and then yeah, I'm going to throw in a 3 legs SGP. Um, for my same game parlay of the week. And it goes back to some of what we discussed earlier. So I'm going to go JSN, 6+ receptions. I am pretty confident that DK Metcalf is not going to be playing and probably end up playing him, maybe 6 or 7 receptions. Buffalo is more prone from a passing defense perspective to giving up shorter passes. Not so much on the explosive passing side, which I think plays into the hands of the area where JSN mostly operates. Also going to add Kenneth Walker anytime touchdown because I think they're going to be down. I think they're going to need to score, and Buffalo is not so great. They give up like 5.2 yards per carry, I think, which is not great. So from a rushing standpoint, I think that's the area where you can really attack Buffalo. And then Amari Cooper, 50+ receiving yards. He was involved last week. He's only going to get more involved this week. The fact that he was able to contribute as much as he was, like only a couple days after seeing the playbook, they brought him in there for a reason. I think he's going to be the number one target pretty soon. So 50+ yards. So the three of those together is about plus 500, plus 475 it was on FanDuel. Again, shop around and you could probably. I haven't checked Bet365 or some of the other places where I like to build my parlays, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could get plus 500 or better. So that's what I got for you guys this week. And now I'm going to kick it over to the current head chef in the kitchen, Dave.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving me the hat. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the chef hat here. But yeah, so I have two parlays because honestly, I have multiple books and you get to boost for same game parlays. So I usually have more than one same game parlay going anyway. So I figured, might as well float them out there to everybody, see what happens. But a couple of these legs I'm actually going to be taking straight as well. So I'm going to start with those and then tell you what I'm going to add on for the parlay. But one of the first game that I'm targeting is the Eagles and the Bengals. Eagles secondary stinks, and the Bengals passing offense has been dominating, but the Bengals defense also stinks. So I'm expecting to have some major chunk plays and some players really step up here, and it'll be fun for the over props. So the props that I'm definitely taking straight is Joe Burrow's over 257.5 passing yards. Again, I think they're going to light it up on the pass game. You can't really run that well. It's harder to run, I should say, against on the Eagles defense. So I think they're going to attack through the air here. And I've been also liking T. Higgins reception lines. I've been liking. He's been getting a ton of targets. If you haven't been paying attention, Chase has obviously been getting more of the yards and fantasy points, but T. Higgins actually been leading on receptions a lot of games. Usually in that like 7 reception range. So at 5.5, I feel real comfortable with that. So I'll be taking that over receptions there. And then also Devontae Smith over 54.5 receiving yards. So last week, I believe he put up a goose. And I don't think that's going to happen again here. And I think that's why the line's low. And usually when I see a player who I believe in have a really bad week, I try to look their way again. Their lines usually get depressed a bit. And again, with a real bad Bengals defense and a game where I think both sides are going to have to score to keep up, I think Devontae Smith should get enough action to get at least 55 yards. So those three I'm going to take straight. But then I'm going to combine those three and add in also, Jamar Chase over 75.5 receiving yards because, again, I think he's going to break a couple of plays off in that leaky Eagle secondary. And then also going to add in Joe Burrow over 1.5 touchdowns as well because, again, as I mentioned, it's going to be a lot of passing. And I think it all kind of correlates here. But if you combine all those together, you get about 9-1 at plus 906. At least that's what I saw on FanDuel. It was definitely better lines on FanDuel than DraftKings when I was looking. You might give up a couple yards or points on DK, so I'd look FanDuel's way first. But a nice 9-1, and then if you have the same game parlay boost, that'll pump that up a little bit higher. And then the other game that I'm liking is the Packers versus the Jags. Really, because I like the Packers, because the Jags defense is bad. Joey alluded to it. They are going to give up a ton of points and a lot of yards. And Love is always throwing it every single game. So I'm really liking, for the most part, a lot of the passing pieces here. So the plays I'm taking straight is Jaden Reed over 57.5 receiving yards. He kind of disappointed last week. I'm not expecting to see that happen again this week on a real bad defense. And I'm also putting Romeo Doubs over 45.5 receiving yards. He's getting a ton of targets. He's not a huge big play guy. He does actually make some kind of sometimes they throw it up in the air and he kind of gets the defender mixed up and he'll make the reception there. But he gets enough action that I think he should get to at least 46 yards. And I'm also going to go with Josh Jacobs' rushing yards of over 65.5 because I eventually do think that the Packers will be up, and I don't think the Giants defense can stop it when he starts going. So I think he should easily get to over that line at some point in the game. So I'm taking all three of those straight, but I'm also going to combine them and then add in Jordan Love over 1.5 pass touchdowns. Right now, that's minus 184. Usually don't bet lines that expensive straight, which is why I'm only adding into the same game parlay. But I think Jordan Love is throwing multiple touchdowns most games. It's kind of why the juice is so high there, and I expect to see that again here. Even when they're blowing out teams, they're going to be throwing it. So when you combine all that, it's almost about 7.5-1. You're getting plus 764, at least on FanDuel. So I think that's pretty good odds for just betting honestly on the Packers offense. So and against the Jags defense, whichever way you want to take it. But that's what I'll be riding this week.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of just targeting the bad defenses and just playing a bunch of guys over because that tends to work out.
And it's fun.
And it's all very correlated to begin with, but it's even more correlated against a team that can't stop the pass. So
exactly. But those are our plays. Hopefully, we keep dishing out the good courses right here. Hope you're nice and full by the end of the weekend.
Yeah, and we'll see. Let's see if we can get. We're giving you a lot of plus money ones today, so We'll see if one of these can come through, get to the window, then we'll have a profitable.
I will say FanDuel has completely ripped away my max bet on their boost because I guess I've hit too many of them. But yeah, I used to have 100 and it's now down to 10. So not great. So I usually boost it and then I sprinkle a little bit without a boost, but it's fine.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Nice. Well, moving on real quick to just a quick league update here before we close things out. Another week went by. This past week, pretty brutal for a lot of teams here. Actually, our weekly high was the lowest weekly high we had all year, but it went to your boy Joey Gallo. He put up.
That's right, baby.
He put up a gaudy 141.14 points. I think the top three scores were all within like 1.2 points of each other. Joe edged them all out. He loves edging. And then the low score is actually for the second straight week Chris Canellis and actually beat his record from last week pretty significantly of 64.52 points. That's not. We're getting to low scores now. That's going to be one that might stick around. Just a reminder. Last year, the first low score was 63.14, and that stuck around for until week 12 last year. So this is only about a point more than that. So we'll see what goes on. Who knows? Week 13 last year, though, we had it was 33.8, and I don't. That was just
that might be the lowest score in the history of the league.
Yeah, I'm happy I keep track of it because I keep forgetting how god awful that is, and that's just embarrassing. And you know who you are. You know who you are. But aside from that, and any other key matchups or happenings in the league? I know a lot of people there's a lot of trade talk going on in discussions right there. A lot of people haven't been able to get over that hump. Just keep plugging away. I want to see more action in there, but also know I'm selling. My team is available. And when a little food for thought, when you finally commit to selling, you got to commit completely. Like you, which is why I changed my team name, my logo. You really just make it known that you're a storefront and you want people to come and shop. And that's what I'm doing. And it makes, honestly, the experience a lot more fun. So if you ever are hesitant, it's like, do I buy? Does sell? Selling's not as fun. No, selling can be a ton of fun, and I'll make it. So go for it. But Joe, what about you? Any other thoughts on the league?
No, just I got to make a decision. 2 thoughts. I got to make a decision on buying or selling pretty soon. And second thought is just it's been pretty impressive how kind of a lot of the teams that we thought were going to have be in the best position going into this season have underwhelmed. My team, Canellis' team, and we were all pooping on Schluter's team, and Schluter's team is looking strong, not only for now but also the future as well.
Basically, the Chiefs. You're like, I don't know how he keeps winning, but he keeps winning. But he's putting up points.
Yeah. So goes to show that nobody really knows anything.
And yeah, I mean, I know Scott. He came like inches within selling, and he balked at it, and now he's like all in. His team's looking great and making a strong playoff push there. So. Yeah, I'll think in a couple episodes we'll probably have to do an update on the power rankings, and there'll be a lot of movement there, a lot of movement. And we don't get everything right, and in fact we get a lot of things wrong. But it's all good and fun. But keep it going, get those trades going. Trading is honestly the best part of what fantasy is about because I apparently can't win, so I might as well just trade. So
yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, with that, we'll start playing the music.
We are out.
We're thanks again for listening, and keep at it and join the league, man, and follow our bets.
Bye, guys. Go Tyreek.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the NSFW Dynasty Podcast.